Good evening. Gary thought that there might be a few things that you might not know about Carl, and so he asked me to put together a very brief biography and share that with you this evening. So I Googled Carl, just the name Carl, and this is what I found. The story of Carl begins with Joseph and Anna Gmoser, Carl's parents, who came from the part of Austria where they just can't be bothered pronouncing the first letter of people's last names. Immigrating to America, they settled in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where Carl and twin brother Earl were born July 10th, 1921. Now, Earl was actually born first. Realizing that one day he might have to shop for clothing, Carl stayed in for as long as possible. Also in the family was older sister Mickey, and sadly another brother, Joseph Jr., died at age 9 before Carl was born. When Carl was a little boy, the Gmosers moved to Trexlertown in Pennsylvania's Lehigh Valley. There, the family owned and ran the Eagle Hotel and Tavern, a popular watering hole among local farmers. It was during Prohibition, and if you ran a tavern back then, you basically had two choices: stop serving alcohol or be discreet. Carl loved telling the story of how one day several farmers, wearing their blue overalls and anything else that farmers would wear, just walked into the tavern, went over to the bar, and asked Carl's dad for the good stuff. Now, Joseph Gmoser knew exactly what they meant, and he poured each of them a glass of his top-notch beer. The so-called farmers reached into their overalls and pulled out hydrometers, which they then used to measure the alcohol content of what had just been served to them. What was then served to Carl's dad was an injunction. The farmers, you guessed it, they were federal agents, and they proceeded to close down the tavern. Now this taught Carl a valuable lesson. From then on, anytime a farmer asked him for the good stuff, Carl would give them fertilizer. Now Carl learned another valuable lesson during those Trexlertown days. One time, he and Earl found a pack of cigarettes, and they went to a nearby construction ditch, took a ladder, and climbed down to the bottom, where no one could see them, and then they proceeded to light up. Well, unfortunately, their dad walked by, and yes, he saw them, and he yanked the ladder out and left the boys to spend the night at the bottom of that ditch alone with their cigarettes. Carl told his own boys this story, and it must have sunk in, because none of them ever smoked. And we all know how Andrew and Kenneth can never be far from a ladder. After this incident with the feds, a friend suggested Joseph and Anna move the family to New York City. And that's how the Gmosers found themselves in the Yorkville section of Manhattan, in an apartment at 83rd and 2nd. Carl attended School 190, Yorkville Junior High, and he graduated from Murray Hill High School in 1940 at the top of his class. Just days after graduation, at age 18, Carl went to work at Merrill Brothers, a steel forging plant in Massillon, Queens. He would work there for 46 years, rising in the ranks, starting out as a die sinker apprentice, then becoming a union shop steward, a production foreman, and ultimately plant superintendent. Gary, who was fortunate enough to work with his father for a brief time at Merrill Brothers, remembers how his dad was a person that all the other men at the plant would come to for answers to any number of things, often personal matters. Carl was always there for them with wise counsel, and always on his feet, day in and day out. When Carl turned 65, he retired from Merrill Brothers. Carl even got to machine his own watch. Don't know if you know this, Carl originally pursue a career as a naval architect. In fact, he took the exam to become one, and about a week after he started his job at Merrill Brothers, Carl was accepted for the training program to design ships. But our nation needed Carl right where he was. World War II was in high gear, and Merrill Brothers was running round the clock, producing valuable materials for the war effort. Carl was anxious to serve his country, but as a vital craftsman in the steel industry, he was given a military deferment. Still, Carl did give his nation additional support as a member of the National Guard. Well, then came 1945 and the big band era. Carl was an officer and a gentleman in a naval cadet organization called the American Blue Jackets. While rehearsing for the annual review at the Kingsbridge Armory in the Bronx, Carl spied a fair maiden by the name of Lulu Britz, who also happened to be a member of the Blue Jackets. When Lulu told Carl to fall in, he fell all right, in love. The two started dating while Lou was attending Linden Hall Junior College in Lidditz, Pennsylvania. Carl proposed, Lou said yes, and an exciting new chapter was about to be written in the life of Carl Gmoser. An interesting little side story. Carl's bachelor party was held at the Boulevard Restaurant, which was also known as the Showplace of Queens. The singer there that night was the one and only Harry Belafonte. Rumor has it that Carl's brother Earl tried to get Harry to pop out of the cake. But it turns out Mr. Belafonte has